my speech, why could I not write the truth in my journal? And I will begin with reading the opening of Ti Amo, this novel, but I just found out that before I read it in translation, in the English translation, I want to read a little bit in Norwegian, and you don't have to translate it, so just that you hear the sound of it in Norwegian. Jeg elsker deg. Vi sier det til hverandre hele tiden. Vi sier det I stedet for å si noe annet. Hva skulle det andre ha vært? Du. Jeg holder på å dø. Vi. Ikke gå fra meg. Jeg vet ikke hva jeg skal gjøre. Før. Jeg vet ikke hva jeg skal gjøre uten deg, når du ikke her mer. Nå. Jeg vet ikke hva jeg skal gjøre med disse dagene, denne tiden, hvor døden det mest synlige I alle ting. Jeg elsker deg. I love you. We say it to each other all the time. We say it instead of saying something else. What would that something else be? You. I'm dying. Us. Don't leave me. Me. I don't know what to do. Before. I don't know what I'll do without you. When you're not here anymore. Now, I don't know what to do with these days, all this time, in which death is the most obvious of all things. I love you. You say it in the night when you wake up in pain, or between dreams and reach out for me. I say it to you when my hand finds your skull, which has become small and round in my palm, now that your hair is almost gone, or when I stroke you gently to get you to turn over and stop snoring. I love you. Once I would reach out in the night to touch your skin, to place my hand on your back, your stomach, your thigh, anywhere at all, and there'd be connection, contact. And in that feeling of skin and warmth, something small and without language, something perhaps undeveloped in me, a newborn part, could sink down to sense the base of night, return home, or arrive. I love you. But you are no longer in your body. I don't know where you are. Awash in morphine, you drift in and out of sleep or languor, and we do not talk about death. I love you, you say to me instead, and reach out for me from the bed on which you lie through the days, fully dressed, writing on your phone, writing a novel on that little screen, 2 or 3 lines at a time before you drift into sleep again. And I let go of the door frame and step towards you and take your hand and look at you and say, I love you too. I met Luigi the 26th of May 2016. My daughter, who had been living with me, had left 4 months earlier in January to study in Los Angeles. I had had a spring alone. I had been doing a lot of manifestations, inner preparations. I knew I longed to meet somebody, and also I was open to it being a person from abroad, for me to go abroad. So when I saw Luigi at the conference at Lillehammer, where I did a presentation of my latest novel to foreign publishers, and he was among the audience as an Italian publisher, I was prepared. Half a year later, I moved to Milano to live with him. 2 years later, he got pancreatic cancer. He lived 2 more years before he died in June 2020. Ti amo is a novel or a document I wrote half a year before he died. When you fall in love, what is it that you love about this other person? It is impossible to say. It is everything. And inside this everything, with Luigi, it was his eyes. To look into his eyes was home. It was such a huge place there. And don't mind if I cry. I'm fine, I just cry. And it passes. So rich and warm and tender and fun. It was just good to be there. In his eyes. I was welcome and there was room for me there in a way that I had never experienced before. But we never talked. I'm about to realize the depth of that again, as we realize things over and over in new ways, maybe also in more profound ways. And I'm realizing the loneliness in it. First, we had 2 years of headless being in love. Then he got cancer. He was operated, which gave him more time. But I knew he would die. The internet, the statistics are very clear. I do not know if Luigi really took in that he was dying. The oncologists said he asked very little. They played him by the ear and did not confront him with his prognosis. And he did not in any way want his death to be a reality between us. I wrote this passage in Ti amo. You sit up in bed. They've brought some food, but only for me. You've got to fast before the examination. Only then the nurse comes and say it'll be another 2 or 3 hours yet. So if you want, you can have just a bite of something. And you say you fancy a brioche. So I go down to the hospital snack bar by the entrance and buy a pan of chocolat. You wanted one with jam in it, but that's all they've got. And I come back, and when I come back, you sit in bed. You sit up in bed and start eating it, while I munch broccoli and courgette here at the table where I sit and write. And then you say, I'm not actually that hungry. I'm scared. Yes, I say, and look at you, and we say nothing for a moment. What are you scared of? I say then, thinking death. Only you say you're scared you'll have to do more surgery. That's what's on your mind, another operation. And I just blurt out then that they won't be doing that. They won't operate twice, because that's what I've read. They might perhaps operate to facilitate the passage of food if there are tumors that get bigger and block the way, or to ease the pressure on nerves and thereby lessen pain. Procedures that are meant to alleviate rather than cure. That's what I've read. But all I say is that they won't operate again. And at that moment you look at me as if suddenly there's something you've understood or seen. But what will they do then, you say, if they won't operate and the chemo doesn't work? Are they just going to let me die, you say, looking like this is a completely new thought, as if you have ventured into an area that until now has been cordoned off, where you've never set foot before and have no clue. Your face looks like it's collapsing in on itself, and there's nothing there for you to hold on to. I'm scared for you then, scared that now you're going to be scared. I'm distraught and helplessly adrift inside, and I'm surprised at myself. Haven't I been wanting us to make contact with the reality of this? To look openly into each other's eyes, be together in the way things actually are. And yet, here I am, scared by your mere mention of death. You're even entertaining the possibility of it. Reading this, I realized it's not a very accurate translation, but anyway. And I feel I must get you away from there at once. Because I'm not that resilient, not at all. And when at the next moment you seem to leap inside yourself across to the opposite place where hope resides and say you're sure everything will be all right, all I can say is I think so too, even though I don't. I started to write Ti amo because I had to. I had nowhere else to go with all this losing my love, this not talking about it. It was like exploding inside. So I went to the writing, to do what I always do when I write, what writing is to me, not to say things, but to find a place, and then go there, in that place, to be with whatever is. I had to make a place for all the things we did not talk about. I wrote the first page of Ti amo, and already after the first 2-3 lines I knew, no, you're not writing for yourself anymore. No, you're writing literature. There is a passage, a crossing, a deeply noticeable difference between writing and writing literature. Something happens in the writing literature. I do not totally know what, but I feel it immediately. It gets concentrated, and in some way it is not me anymore. It comes from somewhere bigger. It is an act of extreme presence and of surrender at the same time. Writing comes from a place in me that knows how the text has to be. I just have to listen and follow. I've always written a journal. I remember my solitary train travels throughout Europe in the late 80s and early 90s. I remember waiting 8 hours for a connection in Berlin. I vaguely remember sitting on the asphalt at Alexanderplatz just after the fall of the wall. I was going to a volunteer work stage in a newly opened Romania, staying 3 weeks with the small boys at a boarding school, more like an orphanage. The gypsy boys, I guess that's not politically correct, who had remained there, who were not collected by the parents for the summer. So I was sitting there in Berlin on the ground. I could see myself at 20 or 22, sitting there, writing in my journal. But it didn't help, that writing, because I did not write the truth. In writing that journal at that time, and in all my life until then, I wrote what I knew was right. What was right to think, what was helpful and optimistic and constructive. I wrote good things to myself. I remember the tone in it, too bright. But in doing so, I was not with myself. Why could I not write the truth in my journal? Two years later, at 22, I've written, but it's 23, I guess. I wrote my first novel. The opening, the very first text, I wrote it at a table in the corner of the cafe at the gallery F15, an art gallery on the peninsula south of Oslo. I had just seen an exposition of photographs, the seal photos by the Norwegian photographer Manning, and the works of Francesca Woodman. It was a week before the start of the one-year writing program at the district university, which I had applied for just to fill up another year waiting until I could enter the psychology studies I was in line for. And there in that cafe, after seeing those photographs, I wrote the first text, and I remember this feeling already then, immediately. I am writing. It was not for myself anymore. And inside that feeling, it was true. My obligation was not towards me anymore, but towards the text. I was free. Now it is 3 years since Luigi, my husband, died. And slowly I start to realize how much I regret us not talking. Or regret us talking, I guess, is correct. Not us talking about him dying, but really talking. Why could we not talk? I think of the safety and closeness in being honest to each other. But how can you be open and honest with another person if you're not in contact with yourself? In writing literature, I've always trusted the place in me that the writing comes from. I trust it with such confidence. But in life, I have not had access to the same. I have lived all my life, almost until lately, feeling orphan inside. Like there were no adults at home. In my relationships, I've sought a symbiotic closeness, like a pre-verbal one, where being together, being inside the gaze of my loved one, being inside the landscape in Luigi's eyes, was the world to me. I had no steady feeling of my I. How could I then talk? Writing has been possible because I trusted the writing, because it came from this place in me that was in contact with my truth. But in some way, I had never considered this place to be mine. It has been accessible only in the writing literature. And then there was this lost, miserable person out there in the world who was me. But the me, I, when talking, I have trust in the words I write when I write literature, but not in the words I would say. The spoken, as if the I in me was only available for the writing and not for Hanne out there in my living everyday life. A year ago, I did my first psychedelic journey with MDMA, and during that journey, I discovered that I had been lost right outside my own door for my whole life. I realized that the writing me is actually me. That I have a center inside that I can trust, not only in writing but also in life. During the MDMA journey, the voice of myself inside me said, laughing softly, I'm right here. I've been here all the time. This discovery, I took it with me into the novel I then have been writing this last year. Bli hos mig, stay with me. Here I write about anger and fear, childhood, loss and love. To me, the writing is an opening to images that then in turn make me realize what I need to see in life. Because the I in the writing has had more access to me, to my truth. The images in the writing somehow often comes first, before life. But this might be about to change. It has taken a year for me to incorporate this new insight. I'm coming around to it first now, and I have come to understand that to be able to talk, you must be welcome. Not only welcome to the other person, but something inside yourself must welcome you to yourself. In writing this novel, I have discovered that I grew up with a deep feeling that my mission in life was to serve others, to be there for my angry and desperate father, to be there for my scared and helpless mother. The writing I have done in closed-off rooms, not showing what I wrote to anybody, not talking about it with anyone. It was the truest me, but the only way I could have access to it was to hide it from the others. To be present with the others, I extinguished myself. In some way, also writing has been something I have done to serve. I have served the text. My truth has served the text. But I was not important. This I, me, here I sit. My bodily presence in the world, my being. I think I grew up feeling that my importance was what I could be to them, for them, but that being me was not given value. I'm talking about me as a little girl, or a toddler, then an older girl, then always. My truth, the person I was when I was not of use, not serving, was like nothing. Not that they were cruel to me, it was just not seen. How could I then learn to give value to me? To talk, I have to be willing to give myself value. I have to be with myself. So I am in this process of welcoming myself in the now, in the present, to be here. Literature and art and music are life forms that allow us to share what else is hidden deep inside, or too fugitive to grasp, too airy, too complex or strange. In the writing, in the images, it can be shared. We're not alone there anymore. I write my novel and I do it all alone. You read the novel and you do it all alone. But the text, or music or painting, opens that place of existence so it becomes shareable. That's the gift of art. But then there is the gift of presence. I'm coming to realize that we are right now. That love is not only a word, but a possibility in this very moment. I'm coming to life, I'm coming to love, and in this process I've started to talk. It is an act of self-love. I'm not here to serve, I'm here to share. To share my writing, but also my presence. I'm here to be. And I have to be me, to be with you. Ti amo ends like this. I love you, I wrote. I love you, I write. I say, when you come through the door in the evenings. You still come through the door when it's evening. For now, you're here with me. And what I've been writing is the most truthful way I've been able to be with you, with all that cannot be said between us in our days together. I'm not going anywhere, I'm here. And I'll be here all the way until it's you who isn't here anymore. From my notebook, 24th of October, on the train back to you from Ravenna. Bleak drizzle, 9 a.m. Walked to Basilica di San Vitale and Mausoleo di Galla Placidia. The blue vaulted ceiling of the mausoleum with its shining stars of gold and a cross at the apex. You wanted to bring me here and show me this from the very start, and now I'm seeing it on my own. Yesterday I saw Dante's grave. In the San Vitale, the way the great marble blocks of the pillars possess a quieter beauty than the glittering mosaics. The mottled markings in the marble are just there, silent and displayed. And what was hidden within the stone, the veins, the figures they trace, is exposed now for all time, laid bare, halted in once so sweeping, no dissected movements through the stone. And what we see is the cross-section, the wound, and the beauty of what simply exists, neither devised nor constructed, merely disclosed. This is these veins in marble, this traced figure. And you are somewhere between the two, between the silent pillars of marble and the gleaming mosaics of the chancel, between everything that is. You come towards me, are with me, are you. Thank you. Of course, I never wanted to lose Luigi and whatever, but it happened. And when that was what I became to live, I'm grateful for that experience because it destroyed me so that I could become softer. It destroyed me so that my vulnerability became deeper, and then my openness and ability to love grow deeper. So I'm grateful for that pain, but don't ever dare to call it sweet. It was really never sweet.
It occurred to me when you were reading the English translation, and the book is called Ti amo. Already there's a gap between Ti amo and I love you, somehow. But it was written in Norwegian, so I wondered what if you can say a little bit about this process of translation and how maybe that affects you sharing yourself, and also this relationship that you have of talking to Luigi or not talking to Luigi, but the language that was used, and then having that language translated, and then other people come in somehow, with translators. So I'm curious, I guess, and the book is translated in quite a few languages already.
Yes, I don't really understand your question because I'm not involved in the translations, only the Italian one I've been deeply involved with, but the English one, for instance, like right now, I have avoided to read the translation, the English translation. I'm doing it now, starting to do it now with a new novel, but before I must admit that translations have always been so extremely painful for me, because it in the languages that I'm able to read, it is. I know this sounds. It's a big gift and a wonderful thing to be translated, and I'm really grateful for that. But inside of me, I feel that I'm losing my text in translation. I lose it, and that feeling of losing it is so I've kind of, and also, we all talk English. But my English is what it is. I mean, I have a wonderful translator into English, and so in some way, since I don't feel English, I could never write in Italian, I could never write in English because I don't feel it the way I feel Norwegian, and so I don't feel if it's. I can more or less say, oh, like I said, there was something he has kind of taken out of it, and that is really a part that is important for me, because the last part, not the ending, but when Luigi is so afraid of dying and he goes into that place where he's totally lost, and in the Norwegian version it's very concrete. It says in the Norwegian version, I wanted to go in there and take him hand and lead him out of that field of, lead him out of there. And he has not translated that. And I find that is such a concrete and very kind of tangible image that I miss. I miss it. And of course, if I had the courage to revise my translation, I could have said something about that. But now I'm growing stronger, so I will do that for the new novel. But now I was talking a lot. I was asking you a question. What did you mean?
This was already. I mean, it was an open question, so yeah. I think this was useful to hear. Yeah.
Thank you.
A beautiful, moving reading, and also it was thrilling to hear you read in Norwegian. Oh. And the kind of expression you put in that, the naturalness. My question is about editing, and it's actually almost a little uncomfortable to ask this about for me to ask this about a text that is so. When I read it, I felt the incredible immediacy and rawness that you either created in it to begin with as you wrote it, or that evolved in it. But I'm wondering, to what extent did you edit this document? You've also referred to it, you've sometimes called it a novel and sometimes a document, and sometimes both. So could you share a little of the editing process?
Yes. Yeah, my Norwegian publisher called it a novel. That has also to do with the literary economic system in Norway. The state buys novels. So, but I think of it as a life document, as a document. But the literary text is a literary document. But editing, this is a text that if you kind of read very attentively, you will see that the novel, the now in the novel takes place in 10 days. And that's how I wrote the novel. It's not edited. That's the way it came out, and then it was published. It just came out that way, and in some way, I think it's my 15th novel or textbook, and I think. I'm just grateful to life that I had written 14 books before that made it possible for me just to jump on this, into this writing, and have trust that I could just write what felt right and just follow this flow, because it's really a flow, the text. And I think that is because I have the experience.